Okay, so there are other platforms that you could use for that. I think another one quite popular, it's called Netlify. But Netlify is not for full stack. So if you have a backend as well, a backend server that you want to deploy as well, I think Netlify doesn't allow this. And then there are the more serious one like the Amazon cloud that you can also use for deploying apps. But we will be using Heroku, which is a quite intermediate, has most of the things that we need. It's not that expensive. Even if you don't have the free account, you can also pay for a year or something for some credits. You get some kind of credits that you can spend depending on the traffic that your app has and how much use it has. Okay, so for using Heroku, there are many steps that we need to do. I already asked you to create a Heroku account and installed also the app on your mobile so that it does a double verification. Let's suppose that we have this. And then the other thing that we need to install is the Heroku CLI, which is the command line interface so that we can talk with Heroku through our terminal. So this one I forgot to ask you to install earlier. If you want, check here. So I shared these files with you now on resources. This file, this PDF has all the steps and instructions that we will be using. And so this first part is the one that I asked you to do already, which is to create the login, and also, since it requires this multi-factor authentication, to install the app on your smartphone so that you can do this every time you try to log in. And then there is this step that is to install the Heroku CLI. And so for this, if you go to this link I sent you, I think it's the same I have here. So JIT you all have installed already. You don't have to check this because we have been working with JIT a lot. So you have this installed on your laptops. And then on Mac, it's quite simple. You just have to run this command and it installs the Heroku CLI. On Windows, you will have to download an installer, and I hope it doesn't give any issues. I haven't tried myself because I don't have Windows. It says here that there may be some kind of warning that comes up when you try to install it, but then if you want to click there, more info, and then if you follow the steps here, you can continue with the installation. So if you want to try it, especially, I mean, if you're on Mac, I think it's not going, it probably takes a bit of time to install everything, but at least you don't have to do anything, just leave it there on the background installing. And also with Windows, you can try to download this. So what we will try to do, I have here one app installed, open up. So is to install some app, any app. As I told you, you could choose any app that you already have. I chose this one, and it will give us a link where our app will be hosted with the database and everything, and it will be fully functional. And we could use this link, we could share it. It's a link that is publicly accessible from everyone, and so that it can be tried from friends or from future employees if you want to send your project to someone that can test it. And so we have this fully functional app here in production. So for setting up this, we need to upload some files in Heroku, and we do this by JIT because Heroku is also using JIT, and we connect our local repository. We have our app with a JIT initiated locally, and then we connect it with the Heroku JIT and the Heroku repositories, the same as we connect our app with the JIT Hub. So you remember JIT and JIT Hub are two things that are different. JIT is a system for keeping versions and everything, and JIT Hub is just a place to host remotely our repositories, but it's just one page. There can be others, and it uses JIT. So Heroku also uses JIT, and with JIT from our laptop, we send our project to Heroku, and we do this through the command line. That's why we need to install the Heroku CLI. And so we will be pushing these files there. But first, we need to do some preparation of the files, and also we need to configure some kind of database, because right now, when we work locally, we have the database in our local server, we have our MySQL server installed, and then the app communicates. We do this .env file. Remember that we set up the DB localhost, the username, the password, so that we get some data from the database. But when this is hosted somewhere else, like on the cloud or Heroku or some other platform, it cannot communicate, of course, with the server that we have on our laptop. So we also have to set up some kind of database server somewhere else. If we use the MongoDB that we saw last week, this is quite easy because we can also link to the MongoDB Atlas, which is also a server that it's on the cloud. So again, the link is easier. But if we use MySQL, we have some other servers that we will use one free one now, so that we can create this SQL version of the database there on the cloud as well. Okay, let's see it with the steps. I hope I don't have to delete this one, because I don't know how many credits I have, how many apps you can have. If I see that it doesn't allow me, I will delete this. So, okay, let's suppose that we have these first two steps done. Are you going to try to follow it? Or have you tried this? Who is going to have it ready and you're going to try to follow?
I'll try to follow it.
Nice. Okay, so then stop me if you have some issue or so, okay, don't worry, Tatiana, you can check the recording also later. So let's see, the first thing that we need to do is to log in to Heroku. We can log in first through the browser. So first you come here, Heroku login, and you log in and you do the double verification with your app. And then once you are logged in, probably your dashboard will show empty. You don't have any app yet. And then we open our terminal. And so the first thing we need to do is do this Heroku login. This Heroku login will ask you to press any key so that the browser pops up. And then when you press any key, the browser pops up and you click here and it already says that you are logged in if you have previously logged in through the browser. If not, you will have to do the login now and do the double verification. And then you can just close this page. So this is a way for the terminal, the CLI, to also be logged in and connected with your account in Heroku. Okay, and so now it says logged in done, and I'm logged in. Okay, let me check here, continue with this. Then we have to create an app in Heroku. So create like the place where Heroku will be hosting our app with the name that we want to use. So from the terminal, now you have to go to the main project repo directory. Okay, so let me go, because I also here I logged in, I was not on that directory. So first I'm going to move to the directory where I have my app, the app that I want to upload. So let's say, I'm not sure which one it is, Ghibli or Ghibli Vit. What kind of app you have, Merle? Is it with Create React App or with Vit?
I think Create React I'll try the MVP project.
Okay, so I'll try the one that is with the Create React app in my case, because I have both versions here. There is a small difference depending which one you use. So first you go to that directory, then I think I don't really have to do the login again, but just in case, no, I'll leave it. I think the login is okay. So in here, when you are in this directory, you have to connect it with Heroku with like a Heroku app. So here we have to run Heroku, create, and the app name that we want to use. So let's say I'm going to use Anna's Ibli or something like this. And Heroku will check it, and if the name is free, because remember this, now it creates a public URL. Here is will be where my app will be hosted eventually, where I managed to push it up. So then this needs to be available. If someone else has used the same name, it will say that the name is not allowed. So if you just say to do, probably it will be taken to do.herokuapp.com, or something that is very common, it may be taken and you need to use a different name. If not, it will say like this, done, and you have this link where your app will be hosted. If you try it now, nothing will show there. So let's say I go and I do this here, welcome to your new app, but there is nothing related to my app there, just like a space reserved in Heroku for this app. Okay, so then we have this space configured, and then we need to change some things in our app. So for this, I'm going to open it in VS Code because we will need to do some modifications on the code. Okay, so what are the modifications? Why do we need to modify, and what do we need to modify? So first of all, we need to have some routes in Express, so in our backend, so that it knows where to find the static assets or the pages when the pages will be built. So so that the server knows where to find the front end. I think it may be the case that we have already this like this in our backend, but let's check it. And if not, we have to put it like this. So we have to use this route, app use, express static path, etc., so that we point it to the client build. This is the folder that will be on the client, where everything will be created. The front end will be created. So the backend needs to know that it will redirect all requests here, all the static assets will be here. And also then we will have your API routes, and then we will have this generic route for anything that it's unmatched, so that it will send all things that are not API requests, it will send to the index HTML. Okay, so let's see, this is on our server on the app.js file. So here we have to use this app use this line, the same as it is on the code. This we do it before our route. So here I have my API routes. So before my routes, I add this for any static files, like any image files or any CSS files that I have that will be created or when I build the front end. So they will all be hosted in this folder on the client. So I have to copy this line here. And then after my routes, I need to add this one. Anything that doesn't match the above, so anything that it's not actually an API request, I will send back to the client and to the index HTML file. So these two, I think we may head it. Do you have this, Ile, like this on your app.js?
I think not the send file.
This one?
Yeah, I don't have that one. I'll copy that one.
Yes, for a copy from the PDF. Mhm. And check also if you have this path import here, because these routes, to create these routes, we use this path package that creates joins with our root URL. It joins the root URL, the rest of the folder name. So we use this path file and we need to import it. I think we have it probably. When we run the create React app, some of this is already created automatically. So what is this client build folder? If you check your client, you will not actually see any client build folder. So right now our client, which is in development mode, doesn't have any build because it's not built yet. If you check when we, I think maybe it's in the README as well, here on the README of the client, let me open it in preview. So when you create a React app, either with Vite or with the create React app script, there is also one command that builds the production, the app for production. So we have not run this command, and so there is no build folder yet created. But the idea is that when you are working in development, so there are two modes that you normally work in development, either in development or in production. And there are differences between the two. When you work in development, you want to have easy access to the file so that you do very easily changes, small changes. You don't really mind the size of the folder and of the file because it's locally, so it doesn't create any delay to load this. And you want to be able to open a file and easily modify and be in a kind of human readable format and not having everything compressed. On the contrary, when you are on production mode, you probably have this somewhere hosted in a server and you want users to be able to download the app. Whenever you connect to a server through a browser, you download the files to see them. So for this, you want them to occupy the minimum space and size possible. So when we want to create the build version of our app, we run this command and it optimizes everything, it bundles everything together. The performance is the biggest issue then, and so it makes some compressed version of all the files. So if now I will just run build, it's not going to create any issue, just so that I show you, you don't have to do this. Just want to show you what it creates. So if I run npm run build, and I have to first npm install because I don't have anything installed on the client. And then, so it will, then this is what it creates, this build folder. And so if you check this build folder, this is the only thing that would be uploaded on the server, let's say, or on the place where you will be hosting the app. This is the only thing that holds all the information, this build folder. You don't have to upload the node modules, the public, the source, and everything. Everything is now in here. But then if you check your code, so let's say I check this file, it's something that it's impossible to read and work with and debug and do anything. So it is together, everything together in the most minimum version possible, and has together your code, so the source code, but also all the packages that are needed. So it makes this kind of bundle files that are smaller in size than having to download all the client folder, but they are not easy to work with. They're impossible to work with. So then when we are in development, we use one thing, and then when we're in production, we build this app and we create this build folder, this build version. And so let me just delete this because I don't need it here locally. We also delete node modules folder. And if you have also checked on the package.json file, either on the front end or on the back end, you will see that many times there are two sections. Maybe you have noticed this already. There is the dependencies and the dev dependencies. So when we install something, it depends if we need it for production or for development only. It is installed in one case or the other. So let's say we have NodeMon. NodeMon actually should not be in dependencies, should be in dev dependencies, because NodeMon is this server that we use so that every time we make a change, it restarts automatically. But this is a server that we use for development only, when we work locally. When we have the app deployed somewhere, the servers work in a different way. We don't want it to, we are not assuming that someone will be changing the files that we want the server to restart. If we want some change, we will probably do the change locally, and then we will upload again the files to the server, and we'll start the server manually. So there are some things that, or the prettier, for example, prettier, it's this add-on that makes our code look nicer, but this is only used when we are on development and we work locally and we want to see our pretty code. It's not something, it's not a package that is needed in production. Okay, so when you install some package, you can have this also, you may find this, you can have this in account, like, for example, specifying dependencies. For now, we were just running npm install MySQL, npm install NodeMon, but the correct way to do it would be npm install and specify if you want it for development or for production. So if there is something that you want for development, you would have to also specify save dev, so that you have specified that this is for development. If you don't specify anything, it is supposed to be for production also. And so the default is that it saves everything for production. Okay. So this is just something to have in mind, that there are these two modes. Probably you have heard that before, the development and the production mode, and there are differences between the two, not only on the files, but also on the way it works, on the way the server works, on the way they restart and everything. Okay, let's continue. Let me continue with our document now. Let me have this too big, I think. Okay, back on our documents. So we added these two routes that will be connected to client build folder when everything is built. And then on the server package.json file, we need to add the following script on the script section. This is what we will be run by Heroku every time we push some new code. So let's say we modify our code, we add something to our app, and then we push again. And then this runs so that if you see what it does, if we check what it does, it changes to the client folder, it installs all the packages for the client folder, and then it runs the build. Everything in one command, but this is what it will be doing. It's actually 3 commands that it's going to do. Every time we push something new to Heroku, it will try to build again the front end. So we need to add this to our package.json file on the server. So here on the script section, the same as we had the start and the migrate script, we need to add this Heroku line here. Also check here your script start. Normally, when we are in development, we have that when we run npm start, it runs actually the NodeMon. It uses NodeMon. But now we have to change this so that since this will be on production, it's not going to use NodeMon anymore. It will use the normal node for running the server. I think this is not on the PDF. The small detail, it doesn't make much sense, change, but it's good that we remember this as well. And the other thing that we need to make sure, I think everyone has this correct, but we want to make sure that from our client, all of our fetches and routes that we are using, they never use this HTTP localhost at the front. They are like this, like clean API routes. I think you all have this already, and we normally specify the address, this part of the URL, we specify it on the proxy, right? But this is not good because we don't want to have hard-coded things inside the code. The port, for example, may be changing. On Heroku, it may not be using 5,000, it may be using some other random port, and so then it would give us errors. The proxy will be ignored by the Heroku. It will do its own connection, okay? So this probably you already have it. Okay, so now let's try to push our app to Heroku. So make sure we have everything committed and added. So we are on our app, and I'm going to make sure I have everything committed. Can't find Husky. You can Husky. It's a development dependency. Okay. I don't think I need this anyway. Okay, everything is committed. Check out main or master. I'm already on the master branch anyway, but I will check out master. In my case, it's called master. It is an old one. And then I should git push Heroku and see what happens. No such app as new Ghibli. Let me try it again. And here is where all the fun and errors begin, because pushing to Heroku, it's what will give you lots of errors. Let me try it again. Let me, but I don't have this. I think I have the JIT. I had the JIT initiated with some different name. Okay, let me JIT, and now JIT init. And let me also, again, just in case. And I will create the app again. Create. All right. And Ghibli 2. Okay. And then, okay, these are all done. And let me try to push again. Okay, good. This is normal. So now I have to copy this. The first time it needs to set up the upstream. And now it starts pushing things to Heroku and building. This can take a bit of time. Has anyone tried it?
Yeah, it's showing me an error when I click on.
When you click on?
Then after I've done it, it directs me to a link.
Uh-huh.
But it shows like an error.
But you have this, like it didn't give you any error during the push.
No.
Okay. The other may be normal because we still don't have the database created. So the link should be this one. Well, it's the name of the app we gave to the app .herokuapp.com. So this should be our link, but let me try it. So if you see anything here, that's good, even if it's not the complete app, because right now this is not connected to any database. So now it's not working yet correctly, but at least I see something. It has pushed my files there and I see something. In your case, you see some error, you say.
It says method not allowed.
Method not allowed. But this on the terminal or on the browser?
On the browser.
On the browser. Can you let me activate the sharing? How can I have to stop sharing. Can you share? Let me activate it now. Okay. If you can share your screen, can check it quickly. Sometimes this needs a lot of method not allowed. Okay, not on the JIT Heroku, on the other link that it gave you, that is your app name, this one, the climbing app or something. Deployed, build succeeded. Okay, sounds good. And then here, open app on the link up there. Oh, there is a button up somewhere up on there. Open app. Okay, and then an error occurs in application on your page if you are an application order. So then this is the thing that, yeah, that you copy and you can use it. This will happen a lot. So this is also a good way of start reading logs, error logs for servers. I hope you are not going to use it a lot, but so normally it creates, we have a log file that writes everything from what we have done. And then here you could see what were the errors. So starting process, missing script, start. Okay, on the package JSON, you don't have a start script. Oh, let me see, but you have another package JSON outside.
Yeah, I had to delete, I should have deleted that because I had my project inside.
Yes, it needs to, the structure needs to be a bit specific when you work. We can try it again. We can try it again later. So, so yes, it needs to be like you are on the server folder, let's say. So you have one package JSON that is your server package JSON, and then in there you have the client folder. But now you had everything also inside some other folder, and there is a package JSON that there is no start.
Should I just delete those, or would that?
You can either delete those or CD inside the climbing. Is the climbing app folder your server? Yeah. So you could CD inside the climbing app and restart the process in there, so that this is like your root folder.
Okay.
And so inside the climbing app, you now need to like create a Heroku app in. So Heroku create, and then it will use a different name. Yeah. I don't know if it accepts. Yeah, maybe it doesn't accept the uppercase. Mhm. Okay, and now it was JIT push Heroku, I think. If all the other everything up to date. JIT, everything up to date. That doesn't sound very good. Maybe it already gets from the outside the JIT connection to Heroku. On the browser, if you click on that same link, climbing up, but without the dash, now because you named the app. Okay, but it's empty. It didn't push anything. Yes, it didn't do the build. No, it didn't push anything. I think it finds that the JIT is the previous one and that it pushed already, but okay. Move one folder up like cd ... and then in here remove any JIT. So rm minus rf .JIT with a space between the rf and the JIT. .JIT. I think it is .JIT. And so now move inside the climbing up again. And JIT init in here. And now, okay, JIT add with dot and JIT commit. Okay, and try the JIT push Heroku again and see if it does it. If not, we'll need to create a new app name. JIT push Heroku. Okay, good. So now copy this. Heroku does not appear if I create show. Sorry. Do the Heroku create app again with a different name. So I know we have many names created. We will delete them. Yes, it's a bit. Okay, and now the JIT push. Okay, let's see, maybe now it will work. At least it's sending data. It says what remote rejected, push rejected, failed to compile, push failed, it's location. The yarn file, it's bothering it. You have to remove the yarn file. Yes, because JIT, the Heroku works with NPM and yeah, we have to delete it. And try it again. Or I think now that you deleted it, you have to JIT commit again, just in case. Yes, so that it gets the changes. And then -m.
Oh, yeah.
Commit -m, yes. Yeah, our friend, the JIT. Okay. Hmm. Okay. Okay, let's see. I'll continue with this. So we have some files already up, set up and everything. So now we need to set up our database. That's the thing. So if you see anything, when you click on the link there, then it's okay. We haven't installed the database yet. And so it's not going to function yet. If there are some errors as we had now with Nile, if you do the Heroku logs tail, you see all the errors and you can track it down and see what was the thing that was failing to try to fix it. Okay, so how do we add the MySQL? As I was saying, we will need to find some kind of server that works on the cloud. There is a free ClearDB add-on with Heroku that we can use. Tell me if I did correctly, Nile, if the build was correct.
Yeah, it works and it's showing everything showing up on the front end.
Nice. Okay. Something shows. Nice. Okay, so now let's try to set up the database. From your terminal, again, the same where we are, we use this Heroku add-ons, create, ClearDB, ignite, this command here. This will connect, we'll install this ClearDB add-on, which is a free version for the MySQL server there. And so let me run it. Heroku add-ons, ClearDB, ignite. Feeling free, created as clear database. Okay. So to see what it created, we run Heroku config because it created a configuration variable that connects Heroku to a database. So if we run Heroku config, this is the URL of this server that was created. The format that this has is, it starts with MySQL to specify that it's a MySQL server, and then the first part until the @ sign, it's the username. The second part until, let me check, no, not the first part, sorry, this is the structure. So it's username, the ... this semicolon separates with a password, and then after the @ it's the host, and then with the slash is the database. Remember, these are the 4 things that we were also setting when we were creating our .env file. So if you remember in our, let me go back to the code, we had this .env file and we had these 4 things. We need a host, a user, a name, and a password, a database name and a password. So this is the thing that we had configured when we were working with a local database. So now these 4 things are on this link that it created. Let me just copy it so that it's easier to check. So this link that it creates, this free version of the database, has this part until the semicolon. This one, it's going to be our username. The second part, this one, it's going to be our password. The third part, this here, it's our host, this URL, and then the last part, well, the reconnect true, it doesn't have to be on it, but anyway, it's our database name that it created. It creates automatically some login and database name, etc. So don't expect your database to be Ghibli or your host to be localhost. So these are the things that from this config variable, we want to extract the following variables. In fact, this reconnect true should not be part of the database name, as it says here. Okay, we extract the host, the username, the password, and the database name. The database name without the reconnect true. I just put it here temporarily. We are not going to save it in this .env file. I just wanted to have it some easy way to separate in the 4 different things that we are going to need. So our code inside our app.js and our routes and everything will be searching for a variable DB host with some value. Here on when we work locally, these values they are from they get these values from the .env file. But when we work with Heroku, the .env file is substituted with Heroku configuration. So to configure this, we need to go to the Heroku page. So now we go in our apps here. I think I am on DB2 now. So in your app, and you go to the settings tab, and you go here where it says reveal config vars, configuration variables. So here we need to put everything that we had on the .env file. So the same name that we were using on the .env file, we need to add it here with the new values. So DB name, because I had it as DB name, so my code will be looking for a DB name variable. So I need to create a configuration variable on Heroku called DB name with this new value that I get from this free database server. So DB name, and I copy this string. And then DB host, and I copy the host string. And DB user, and I copy the user string. And DB pass, and I copy the password. And if you have any other variables there, so let's say that you also use the authentication and you use the token, and so in here you have already like some secret that we were using already, something blah blah blah. So you also need to copy this secret and create a new configuration variable. Everything that you have on the .env should be also here, because are variables that your code will be looking for, and that now cannot be read from a .env file. They need to be read from this configuration settings here on Heroku. Okay, so next step, we get our variables, we need to break it down, and any other that you have, for example, if you're using an API and you have an API key that you also had this on the .env file, you also need to pass it here on the Heroku. And then at the end, when we have our database set up, we need to run our migration script. Remember, we were running some migration script, and maybe we were initializing our database with some initial demo data. Maybe you are not, maybe you are initializing it just to an empty table. But anyway, we had to run. I'm not going to save this. This end file, I don't need to save with these things, so I can get back to its original version. Okay, just to have it. This is local. It's not going to be used by Heroku. Okay, and so now I need to run the npm run migrate by with Heroku run at the beginning, because I don't want to run the migrate locally, because if I just run npm run migrate, it will connect to my local database and it will do the setup. I need to Heroku run npm run migrate, so it will run on Heroku. and it will connect to the database that I have set up on Heroku. So it connects and it runs my migration script, and it creates some movies table, and it loads it with some initial data as I had it configured. Hopefully, if everything is correct and we have not any error, then we would be able to see now our app with the data and everything running. And we are all set up. And it should be functional, like be able to put something in favorite or delete, or if I try to add something, it should connect to the database, the new database that I have created, and add something. And that's it. And now you have your app deployed on Heroku. And if you want to delete it, you can always delete an app. So for example, this one I tried before, I think it was not even built. I can come here in settings and just down here, delete app. So that I don't have any old ones here. And that's it. It goes in inactivity after some time. So you see this, to save some resources if the app is not visited and used for short time, because actually I tried this like a couple of days ago and now it's also inactive. So in this free version, it may be that your app, it goes to inactivity, but it's okay. For trying now and for setting up, it's a good version. And so the only thing left I want to show you is just a small difference if you are using the Vite, which will be probably what you will be using if you start creating new React apps. Most of the things are the same. The first thing is that Vite doesn't create a build folder when it builds the client. It creates a folder called dist. So we need to change these routes to client dist instead of client build. And then let me see if there was some other difference. I think that was the only difference. And then you need to also add this line. The Heroku said this line before you do the push, to configure Heroku like this when you use the Vite. So these are the two differences, that the folder name is changing and that you need to add this configuration line. The rest are all the same steps as we have seen so far. Okay, so if you try it later, let me know how it goes. If you have some issues, either if it's with Vite or not with Vite. So questions, more generic, more detailed. So the process, until you do it yourself, I understand that you have to see it on your own and see what errors you get and everything. But any questions regarding, I don't know, production development or how you're planning to use this?
Am I right to think that when you then create the databases, unless if you specified importing content via your npm run migrate script, the database will be empty. It will just create the structure.
Yes. So in some projects, I think we did it. We had this initdb.sql file, especially on the feature extension. When you passed your project to someone else, we said that create also like an initdb with some data, so that the next person that gets it has some data to start and learn a bit how it works. So it depends on how you have your run migrate, and if you have some data, it will create or not. Yeah, so let me check in some apps I have it, and in some I don't either. I had some empty structure. So in this case, in my database.js, which is the one that it's run when I call the run migrate, I have this line, instead of just creating the table, which is an empty table, which is what we did at the beginning, we were just creating an empty table. It actually runs this init.db SQL file. And this init.db SQL, it creates the table, same as we were doing, but also inserts some demo data. But if you don't have it like this, then it will just create a table that will be an empty table.
But if you then modify the code on the database, the helper file, then when you run Heroku again, then it should kind of migrate.
So if you modify, let's say that you don't have the initdb and you want to add it later, you can add it and you can add this initdb, but then you have to run some of the steps again. So you need to commit any changes. So you will need to commit these two files, git commit with a message, or git add and then git commit, and then Heroku push, so that it builds again with the new files. You don't have to create the new app, just Heroku push. And then Heroku run npm run migrate, so that it runs the migration file again.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
And what about if you change other files? Like when you create the build folder, is that supposed to be your final one? Or if you go and change some, I don't know, component or front end, what happens, or how do you do it?
So this npm run build is it's not run locally. This is run on Heroku. So on your folder, on your project folder, you will not see the build folder. Even if it's built for Heroku, it's run there, the command to run it. If you change something locally, you don't have to run build yourself. You just need to push to Heroku. And when we push to Heroku, it automatically runs this script that we added to the package.json that rebuilds again all the client files. So if you change something from the front end, you simply work as you would be working, change something and push. And then as you would do with Git. And then by pushing, this script is called that it will build again the production version for Heroku. And you can also try it if you don't have a backend. Okay, so if you have your MVP, it's only front end, it's not an issue. You can run it and then simply you don't have to specify the database configuration. I don't know if it will find some issue because it will not find a server with the package.json. So the folder structure will be a bit different, and Heroku is a bit peculiar of how it wants its folder structure. But it's not obligatory to deploy an app with a database. So it could be just a front-end app. Just that maybe we need to configure something different on the package.json so that it knows that it's only front-end. If you try it and you have some issue with it, because it's only front-end, let me know. I'll try to make it work. It's good that by the end of like the week, or you try to have some of your app deployed, because it's also nice, and like that you can also send the link to someone, to your family, and like, here is my app, you can play with it, and they can try it, because you cannot easily share your GitHub code with your friends and family. And so it's always nicer if you see it like somewhere public. It sounds more professional and more like product. More questions?
Sorry,
Yes.
how do we do it with the portfolio? Like if we want to have a portfolio with different apps, would we deploy every app to Heroku and put the link, or how do people usually do it?
You will have different links, because each app will have its own name. So you will have a different public link, and you could share both things, because someone, if it's a tech recruiter, will probably like to see the code as well. So it's good that you also share your Git repo, but also have like the other, maybe for if you create, let's say, a portfolio website and you want someone to see your projects in action, you can have the link of the Heroku where they can see the app deployed and running, and also have the link to GitHub if they want to check your code. So you can have both. Okay.